Okay, let's look at the Nexia CS. If we go up here to the menu and we can click on the CS and we can drop it down on the screen and we can click somewhere else to separate the two blocks and move the output block over. And then the next most important thing that we should do on every file is to go and grab input meters. And this allows us to set our input gain properly. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a 10 channel meter. I'm going to drag a square around all of the nodes and drag that to make the connection, and I can do that either direction. One trick that I found for cleaning up my layout, I can place it up here and then I can do a Control F for bring to front and a Control F to bring to front there, and that hides our lines. Or we can go up here into the menu toolbar and do the bring to front, bring to back. So now we have our inputs and our meters. We could continue on with our layout, but today we'll just focus on the input settings. So let's double click on the input block and open it up, and you will see here that we have several adjustments that we can make. The first thing is the gain and the phantom, and that part is in the analog world. That is actually affecting the analog preamp. From the mute on, we are in the digital world, so it's after the analog to digital converter. So the most important thing that we need to do is set our gain structure properly to give our analog to digital converter proper amount of voltage. So what we can do is we can open up our meter, and for ease we can minimize it on the screen and see what we're looking at, and we can drag it over here, and I'll bring this down to give us a little more room. So what we want to do is whatever our source is, if it's a microphone, we talk into the microphone at a normal level. If it's a CD, we play the CD at a normal level, and then we adjust the gain up until we see our meters reading between 0 and +8. Generally 0 to +6 is a good place to start with. Most microphones, that will mean 42 to 48 decibels of gain in the analog world. Some wireless microphones at about 36. For most line level sources, if they're consumer, they're typically coming in at quote -10, and the Nexia is looking for +4, well, that means we should set our gain at about 12. And with some professional sources that are coming in line level, we can go ahead and leave it at 0. The bottom line is we want to give our analog to digital converter the most signal we can to allow it to get a good sample of the audio, and to get the signal to noise ratio, the signal as high as we can above the noise, yet leave us a little bit of room before we run into our ceiling. And in the Nexia we have 24 dB of headroom. About 85% of all of our technical support calls to our technical support department can be solved by just setting this properly. The second thing that's in the analog world is the phantom power. And we do provide a full 48 volts of phantom power, and that is a voltage that goes back up the microphone line to power condenser microphones and the like. Then we get into the digital world, and of course a mute turns the signal off and on. The level in allows us to fine-tune within the gain in. Very rarely do I actually use that. At 0, it's not adding, it's not subtracting. And then our invert would be to invert the phase. In the real world of most audio systems, very rarely is this used. That concludes about everything about the input section. The most important part, once again, is to raise our gain up to where our meters are reading between 0 and +8. If we peak, we'll see a little peak light, and it'll come on about 6 decibels before the actual peak. So we can back it off just a little bit. And that allows us, if we're at 0 to +8, it allows us room for the really loud talker, and it allows us room for the really soft talker, and we're still real close to the 0 dB, and everything else downstream will work much better.